Welcome back to All Things Ag. Today we're going to talk about crops and kind of go over this year and what we're seeing and what's going to happen with our farmers. So today I have with me DeDe, and she is from the Texas A&M Agrilife Extension, and we're just going to kind of go over some stuff that we kind of talked about beforehand, but let's just start out with, this has been a tough year. There's not a lot of rain, it's been a really large drought, and so kind of tell me how that's affecting farmers.
Well, yeah, absolutely. A lot of our farmers planted wheat in the fall, hoping that we would get some rainfall throughout the winter, and then that also we would have a cold winter to kind of put the wheat into dormancy for a little while, and then it would start warming back up, and then the wheat would come out of dormancy, and we get more rain, and it would have great yields. Well, you guys that have lived in the Panhandle over the last 3, 4, 5 months, none of that's really happened. I mean, it was 70, 80 degrees in February, and we have not had much of any kind of moisture at all for the entire winter. And so I was actually talking to a producer up in Spearman last week, and he said his dryland wheat, he'll be lucky if he gets any kind of yields. Most likely it's going to have to be turned into insurance. And while there is some irrigated wheat around, the majority of it is dryland. So our fall crops did not make this year. We had a bumper crop last year, but we did not make hardly any fall crops this year. And then my concern going into the spring cropping season, that's going to be your corn and your cotton and your sorghum, crops like that, is that we don't have any moisture under the ground. And we really need some good subsoil moisture in order for those seed to germinate. And so they can water it up if they have irrigation, but that's expensive as well. So we are in a La Nina weather pattern, which basically means warmer, drier conditions. I'm sure that the y'all's local meteorologist has talked about that. We're hoping to switch over to at least neutral here in March or April. If that happens, and that means that there's at least average rain chances versus below average, which is what we're dealing with at the moment. And so if we will shift our rainfall pattern, then there's better hope for the spring and summer crops. But right now, we just really need it to rain.
Yeah, it's so, let's talk about that spring season. What
Mhm.
is happening right now with crops in that area, and what have you seen flourish instead of kind of that negative side? What's the positive side that you've seen?
The positive side is ironically, there is both kind of a positive and a negative, is that with this attack on Iran that's going on right now, the negative is that gas prices have gone up about 40 cents a gallon, which I'm sure everybody has noticed at the pump. But the positive is that a lot of investors that were investing in overseas commodities are now shifting, and they're investing in our local crops. And so
Okay.
they are starting to play the local commodity markets. And we're starting to see some rises in crop prices. So that is a positive. Also, from a seasonal standpoint, a lot of times we will see a bit of a price spike right before the spring planting season. So if these investors start investing in commodities and we have our normal seasonal price increase that we usually get in March or April, then hopefully there will be some marketing opportunities for our farmers before they go into the growing season.
Yeah, and so let's talk about kind of going into the markets with seeds and stuff like that. What are you seeing?
Overall, our farmers are dealing with what we call a cost price squeeze, which basically means that input costs are higher than the prices or the commodity prices that they are getting for their crops. And so obviously gas is up right now, and it takes a lot of gas to run a farm. So that's a concern. Fertilizer has gone up some, chemicals as well. Seed cost has been relatively flat. So I would say overall that our overall input costs for growing a crop are
Okay.
about the same as what they were last year, and probably actually a little higher. So there's that side of it. From a actual crop price, like what kind of price are farmers getting for their crops, the biggest issue we have with that is just supply and demand. Everybody's complaining that we haven't had rain in a long time, but do you remember how much rain we had last summer? I mean, it rained all summer long. So our local producers and our national producers and even our international growers had bumper crops last year. So we are coming into the 2026 growing season with phenomenal supplies. I mean, some of the highest supplies of crops that I've seen in a long time. And we just really don't have the demand to offset these huge supplies of crops that we have because we had such a good year last year. And our demand's relatively weak for several reasons. Part of it has to do with the fact that there's three demand drivers for corn, which is one of our big crops. One is corn demand for feed. Well, we don't have a whole lot of cattle right now. The drought from a few years ago means we had the lowest cattle inventory in history. So we're not selling a whole lot of corn to the feedlots because there's nothing to feed. We also have corn demand for fuel. Well, our economy is down, gas prices are up, people are not driving as much as they used to be. So demand is down from that standpoint. And then we also have demand for exports, not just for corn, but for all our crops. And, part of it is the tariffs. I will say that's the reason our export markets are down. But also, when the rest of the world has their own supplies, they don't need our crops at the moment. And so
Hmm.
I think that's probably some of the bigger challenges that farmers are dealing with right now is one, they've got an oversupply and a weak demand. And then two, it's really dry, and we're worried about the weather pattern that we're heading into for this summer.
Yeah. And so, with all of this, what kind of programs can people reach out to? And, when it comes to farmers who can't afford or need, that extra, let's say, gas or just in general that help with their farm. I know we talked about, is it Farmer Bridge?
It is the Farmer Bridge
Okay.
program, and there's really two things. In the big, beautiful bill that was passed several months ago, there's about 40 pages devoted to that bill for agriculture. So I have farmers call me all the time and say, when are we going to be getting a new farm bill? Well, a lot of the farm bill was actually written into Trump's big, beautiful bill. And so he's increased the safety net. So some of those, we either have ARC or PLC, they're kind of our Title One safety net programs. Those price supports are much higher than they were in the old program. So come this fall, farmers will be getting better price supports for their crops when they start to sell them and harvest them, probably in October or so. But in the meantime, they did pass another program. It's called the Farmers Bridge Program. I'm pulling it up so I can make sure I tell you the right rates. But essentially, what that is it's kind of a bridge that's going to help farmers in the meantime because those safety net prices aren't going to kick in until the fall. Well, they need to be getting their operating notes renewed right now at their bank. They need to be buying fertilizer and chemical and seed. So the Farmer Bridge program sign up is ongoing at the moment. It's supposed to last through the middle of April, and then the payments will come out. The way it's going to work is farmers have all certified their crops for the 2025 crop year. So that's basically last year's crop. They went to the Farm Service Agency, they certify their acres, and they're going to get a set payment per acre. So let's say
Okay.
they planted 100 acres of cotton, then their payment should be that 100 acres times $117.45 for every acre of cotton they planted.
Wow.
So that is the payment rate for cotton. For corn, it was $44.36 an acre. For sorghum, it was $48.11 per acre. And then for wheat, which is our other common crop around here, it was $39.35 per acre. So cotton got a very big payment. Cotton also got hit really hard from the
Hmm.
tariff standpoint. Wheat, sorghum, and corn, we're probably talking in the $35 to $45 per acre payment. And
Okay.
so the way that should work is they will just have whatever they certified for their planted acres last year times those payment rates. The question I always have though is will they get 100% of that, or will at some point they realize that the money that they allocated for this bridge program isn't going to be enough to pay those farmers 100%? And so maybe they'll only get 75% of the total. We don't really know that until they start making those payments. But just know that that bridge program payment is coming. They need to make sure they go to either farmers.gov or their local FSA office and sign up to take advantage of that.
Okay, perfect. And is there anything else you think that the community needs to know, or just farmers in general, about the crop kind of forecast and what's happening in our area?
Just the biggest thing is that I always have farmers call me and they want to know kind of what is the silver bullet? What do I need to do in order to make money farming this year? And I think this year it's all going to come down to just small changes. It's going to come down to knowing what is your break even price. And that is a price that you need in order to at least break even. Because if you don't know your break even price, you don't know how to market for that crop. And so know what your break even prices are. That way you can market that crop for a price that's higher than the break even. So they're going to have to be really good marketers. They're also going to have to be really good at controlling their expenses. We just did a study that showed that even doing some like deep soil testing to see if they have any residual nitrogen left in their soil could save them even let's say 25%. There's 25% residual of nitrogen in their soil for the summer. That could save them $18,000 on a 1,000-acre farm. And
Wow.
so it's going to come down to doing anything they can to control expenses and then marketing their crop most effectively. Silages always look good. If they can get a silage contract with the local dairy or the local feed lot, that's great. But they also got a lot of silage last year because everybody had a bumper crop. So they've got quite a bit in inventory. It's a lot harder to get a silage contract this year than it was last year. But if they can get a silage contract or a seed sorghums contract, I would definitely recommend that as well.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty, well, that was all I had for today. Thank you so much for joining me and,
Thank you so
getting
much for
that
inviting me.
information out. Yeah, of course.